sorry that I am not with you today, but I thought a really good use of this time would be for you to go and complete your essential word log. Now, we've already started on a couple of these words, but I'm going to go ahead and review them because it's really weird to start right smack dab in the middle of a task, especially when you're making a video for all of posterity, for you to be able to go back and review. It's useful to have all of the words. Okay, so what I need you to do is to open up your word log, but if you haven't done that, or if you are still having some technical difficulties with that, you can just kind of create your own Word document. That's okay, I'm not gonna worry about that, but then there's gonna be some extra stuff that you need to put in it, because the word log already has the definition for a word like revenue. Okay, revenue is our first word, and you'll remember that it's money a government collects in the form of taxes, fees, or fines. Okay, an example usage from the text. Okay, Britain needed more revenue to meet its expenses and pay the debt from the French and Indian War. Okay, so it's talking about the need to collect money to pay for its expenses. Okay, so examples of what revenue is: it's taxes, parking fines, driver's license fees, anything that the government uses to collect money from you is revenue. Okay, so what it's not is donations, refunds, or new roads. If you remember, one of the things that we talked about is that revenue is used to make new roads, but the new road itself is not revenue. Okay, you don't donate money to the government. That implies you're like, here, I want to give you this. Okay, most people don't want to pay taxes, but they realize they need to pay taxes. So that's kind of the difference there. Okay, you are obligated to pay that money, to pay those taxes. All right, so that is word number 1. Okay, word number 2, petition. Okay, petition is a formal written request to an official person or group. Okay, so in this case, an example usage from our readings: American colonists sent many petitions to King George III, pleading with him to end his government's abusive policies. Okay, so an example that we might see today: a letter signed by several neighbors requesting that the city build a park nearby. Okay, what it is not, a non-example, is a social media post complaining about the price of gas. Okay, so what you need to do in your word log, again, just for, funsies, refreshers. Okay, the example. Give me an example of what a petition is, and then the non-example of what the petition is not. Okay, so a letter signed by several neighbors requesting that the city build a park. Petition not is a big old rant on social media that we all see all the time of people complaining about something. In this case, my example is the price of gas. Okay, because, right, this first one is actually doing something. You are performing a civic duty. You are petitioning someone in charge, saying, hey, I think this policy needs to be changed. On social media, you are just blowing off steam. You're stating an opinion. Okay, maybe you are starting a great discussion and people can debate, but you're not actually getting something done. Okay, so a petition is making an official written request or demand that something be done. So moving right along to our third word. If that petition doesn't work, then you could always protest. Okay, a protest is like a formal expression of disapproval and disagreement. Okay, when we talked last unit, one of our words was dissent, right? To disagree. So this is like a more forceful form of dissension. Okay, talking about the colonies, the colonists protested many of Britain's policies by staging public demonstrations and boycotts. Okay, an example that we might use today, a rally at the state capitol against increased taxes. Okay, we talked about with this being an election year, there's a lot of conversation about raising taxes, cutting taxes, who's going to do what with taxes. So as you are listening, you are going to hear a lot of the same kind of arguments that the colonists had back before the Revolution. Okay, a non-example would be like the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Why do you think that is not an example? Because you're not actually against anything. You're going to this parade to celebrate, to see something fun and exciting. Okay, a protest is more that you are trying to get a point across, that you are disagreeing with something and you think that something needs to be done. That is the difference. All right, the next word, treason. And that is betraying one's country by going to war against it or by aiding its enemies. Okay, words related to it: betrayal, disloyalty, traitor. An example that you might find: a spy who sold military secrets to Russia was accused of treason. Okay, spying for another country certainly falls under a treasonous activity. Okay, another example, an American student who joins an enemy country's army to fight against America. Okay, betraying one's country by going to war against it, right? That is right in the definition. Okay, what is not treason? An American prisoner of war who stays loyal to America even when threatened. This is a pretty straightforward word. I don't think that you'll have any problems with it, so I'm going to leave the discussion of treason right there. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about the idea of natural rights. Natural rights being the rights that all people have. Okay? For example, Thomas Jefferson's belief in natural rights led him to justify declaring independence from England. Okay, we know that his belief in natural rights did not stop him from doing other things that arguably were horrible, but we've already talked about that and we'll continue to talk about that as we go on. Okay, so an example that you're probably pretty familiar with and you've definitely heard time and time again is this idea of the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Okay, however, what is not an example of natural rights? Sorry, y'all. The right to wear whatever you want to school. Okay, yeah, a lot of people are like, but I have a freedom of expression and I can be creative and do all of that. Sorry, nope, that is not considered to be a natural right. Okay, the beauty of doing the essential words like this is like you can pause it and take a break whenever you need, because unfortunately we are only halfway through. We are doubling up on the words this unit, so sorry, but here we are. Independence, freedom, from the control of others. Okay. One of the examples that we are going to talk about in this unit is Thomas Paine's common sense. Okay, so our example usage: Thomas Paine's common sense helped convince many Americans of the need for independence from Britain. Okay, it was his writing in part that led people to be like, you know what, yes, we shouldn't be controlled by this country that's far, far away and making unreasonable demands of us. Okay, an example in modern terms that you can think of is a recent college grad, okay, who is employed, has a job, living on their own, and they are able to support themselves. What is not an example is an 8th grader who needs her parents to drive her places, take her to practice and pick her up and drop her off to see friends. That, unfortunately, is not an example of independence. You'll get there someday, I promise, just not today. Okay, guys, the next word: tyranny, an abuse of authority, especially by a government or ruler with total power. The related words for this: dictatorship. Think about really harsh treatment, okay? Something that is excessive and goes above and beyond what you would expect, okay? An example usage from the text that you are going to find, and that looks great on my board, but super sloppy in the video, I'm sorry. In a 1761 court case to protest Britain's policies in America, James Otis declared, "Taxation without representation is tyranny." You didn't see my hand gesture because it was off the screen. I'm getting slap happy because I've been at this for a really long time. Okay, an example from today that you might hear about is searching a home without a search warrant. Okay, what is not an example? Reduced speed limits in school zones. Okay, the difference being, okay, there's laws against this, right? This is actually written into our Constitution, believe it or not, okay, because there was such a strong belief in anti-tyranny, being against this, right? I mean, who wouldn't be? But after the experience of the colonists, you'll see that a lot of the things that they accused Britain and England of doing make it into our Constitution, so we have laws against that, okay? So obviously, searching a home without proper cause, without a search warrant, really, really bad. That is tyranny. Reducing a speed limit in a school zone to protect students and keep people safe, not so much. So hopefully you see the difference there. To me, it's pretty clear, but if you have questions, as always, just let me know. All right, so here we are, moving right along. We are so close, you guys. We're almost done. Okay, the next word is liberty. Now, we talked about that a few minutes ago when we talked about natural rights. And here we're going to see kind of all of these words come together, right? We talked about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, okay? So liberty, by definition, is a natural right to act freely, okay? An example usage is this quote: "This fierce spirit of liberty is stronger in the English colonies probably than any other place on earth." That's Edmund Burke, an English politician from 1775, okay? So liberty is kind of this idea of being free and having freedom. So an example then would be a prisoner of war who's been released from prison. Kind of the opposite, a non-example would be a child whose parents have grounded her. So there you have it. There is the definition of liberty and what it is and how it relates to natural rights. All right, here we go. 2 more words to go, and we are done. The next one, revolution. Okay, we tend to think of that as a really big, drastic, dramatic thing, and a lot of times it is. It can be a drastic change or action, okay, but it can also be an overthrow or replacement of a government by the people, okay? I guess and replacement, not or replacement, because we do that every 4 years when we have a presidential election, if we choose. This is different, okay? An example usage from our unit and what we're talking about now would be, I'll move out of the way. The Revolution was a struggle for power between the American colonists and Great Britain over who would rule the colonies. Okay, that is pretty clear and standard example when we're talking about American history. We can't talk about that without the Revolution, okay? But something to think about in terms of today that might happen, okay? The example, let's say we had a Spanish club at school and they don't like the president and the way that the president of that club is doing things. They could hold a special election and choose a new president. The distinction, what makes this a revolution, is that it's a special election. It's not your standard start of the year, let's hold an election and choose the club's officers. This is, we don't like the way that you are doing things. We are going to have a special election, an unscheduled election to choose a new leader. Okay, a non-example that didn't quite fit on this board because that was a really long example. The president of the Spanish club just moves and leaves the school. So then you have to, then the vice president moves up. Okay, that's not a revolution. That is the natural standard order of things. So that is the distinction. A revolution, again, an overthrow and replacement of a government by the people governed, or a drastic action or change. All right, folks, if you have made it this far and you are still with me, congratulations, you are at the last word. The last word that we are going to talk about in this unit is character, okay? For our example usage, we are going to go to the classic I Have a Dream speech from Martin Luther King Jr. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Okay? An example usage that you may have seen in your life is a student stepping in to help another student who's being bullied. One of the things that I thought was really impressive is as we were discussing what it would take for you to rebel. That was one of the first questions that I asked you, and several of you pointed out that if you had a friend or family who was being harmed, who was being bullied, that you would definitely step up, showing your character. So I was really happy to hear what some of you had to say. Now, an example of what character is not would be a family tradition of watching Josh Gates on Wednesday nights. Okay, it's a lot of fun, but it really doesn't have anything to do with my moral or ethical standards. It just shows that I have really great taste. So there you have it. Those are our essential words. So by now, you should have filled in your word log. You should have an example of what the word is and what the word is not. So go ahead and submit that to me on Schoology. And then as we're going through the unit, and we are making connections to these words in modern times and in the historical context of the revolution. Open up the word log, make some connections, jot down some notes to show me that you are gaining a deeper understanding of what these words are. And then at the end of the unit, I'm going to ask you to submit that again so that I can look through and see that you were in fact making these connections and that you do understand all of these terms. So congratulations, you have made it through an assignment. So go ahead and submit it. Check it off your list. Well done.